Welcome to the Way of the Taibhsear podcast. This is episode 33, Interpreting the Sons of Tuireann, Part 2. This week's Celtic goddess is Shannon. Shannon is a river goddess. She is the daughter of Loin and the granddaughter of Lear. Her name means ancient wisdom, and the Shannon River in Ireland is named after her. The Celtic otherworld has a well in its center called the Well of Wisdom. According to legend, Cumla prohibited living people from accessing this well to gain its inspiration. Shannon ignored this prohibition and sought out the well anyway, journeying to the other world to drink its waters. When she drank from the well, it began to overflow, causing a great flood. Shannon then ran westward to avoid drowning, but the waters overtook her, and she died. The course the water took in its pursuit of Shannon became known as the River Shannon, which is the longest river in the British Isles. It's one of the 7 rivers of knowledge and wisdom said to flow from Cumla's well of wisdom in the land of the ever young. This well is surrounded by 9 sacred hazelnut trees. The salmon of knowledge live in this river and feed off those hazelnuts of wisdom. Legend has it that if you eat a salmon from this well or from one of the 7 rivers of wisdom, you will share in their wisdom. Shannon's tree is the hazelnut tree, and her totem animal is the salmon. Invoke Shannon when ancient wisdom is needed. If Shannon enters your life, expect to gain great wisdom, but at a great price. On last week's podcast, we began interpreting the story of the Sons of Tuireann from Lady Gregory's 1904 work, Gods and Fighting Men. We discussed how the story is one of seeking and finding balance between the opposing forces of chaos and order. This plays out in the story in the contrasting tales of Lugh and the Sons of Tuireann. Lugh's path is one of justice, honor, and the forces of light, while the story of the Sons of Tuireann journey on a path of dishonor, injustice, and the forces of darkness. On this week's podcast, we'll talk about the lighter path, the path chosen by Lugh. We will examine one possible interpretation of the signs and symbols in the story, and discuss how they might apply to one who seeks to walk in the way of the Taibhsear. This interpretation is just one of many. As with all things, take what is useful to you, and leave the rest. Before we look at Lugh's path as a Taibhsear, we need to discuss a few significant points from the killing of Cian, Lugh's father. Cian is speared while in the guise of a pig. When he reveals his identity to the Sons of Tuireann and begs for mercy, Brian says, "I swear by the gods of the air that if the life came back 7 times to you, I would take it from you every time." Later, after Brian and his brothers kill Cian, then try to bury him, they have to bury him 7 times before the body stays in the earth. So for each time Brian has sworn that he would kill Cian, he and his brothers had to bury the body. Why 7 times? What is the significance of the number 7 in Celtic lore? The number 7 deals with the magical forces at work in the universe. At the time of this story, there were 7 known heavenly bodies: the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These planets were, and still are, significant in astrology in determining portents. They help astrologers predict the future. These particular planets were so significant that the days of the week were named after them. The 7th day of the week, Saturday, is ruled by the planet Saturn. Saturn is the planet of balance and karma. Its glyph is the sickle of Cronus, the god of time. Saturn reminds us that what goes around comes around, and that eventually things will catch up with us. It takes the planet Saturn 28 to 30 years to complete an orbit. It's the planet of patience and the wisdom of old age and experience. So the repetition of the number 7 throughout the story here is particularly significant, given the challenges the Sons of Tuireann are about to face. After committing the murder and burying Cian's body, the Sons of Tuireann ride off again to join Lugh in the battle against the Fomorians. The story then returns to Lugh and his adventures, stating that after he parted with his father, he ventured westward. As mentioned on a previous episode of the podcast, west is the direction of death in Celtic lore. So in a way, Lugh is going either to meet his own death or to cause the deaths of his enemies. In many shamanic traditions throughout the world, an apprenticeship begins with some sort of ritual death and rebirth. The future shaman dies to his or her former self and is reborn as a vision seeker. Lugh is riding in death's direction. The story goes into some detail about the path he takes, and all the signposts on the way, naming them all. Again, the number 7 is significant, as the tale names 7 places that Lugh passes through on his way to meet the Fomorians. The fact that the author felt it important to list all of these place names indicates that there must be some importance to these places, and of course there is. Let's examine the significance of these places in greater detail, applying them to the journey of the Taibhsear. The first place Lugh visits is the hills of Gairic and Ilgairic. Together these words mean a shouting over many fords. In the story of the cattle raid of Cooley, this was the place of the final battle of that story, where the 4 provinces of Ireland were joined in battle. So the significance of this place is that Lugh is crossing the threshold into battle with the Fomorians. When a Taibhsear sets out on the path of the vision seeker, such a decision requires a firm commitment. The life of a Taibhsear is not to be approached with an attitude of, I guess so, or I'll do it when I have time, or this looks like fun if nothing else is going on. The way of the Taibhsear is a life philosophy, not a hobby. Once you cross the threshold onto the battlefield, there is no turning back. So in passing Gairic and Ilgairic, Lugh is committing to walk the way of the vision seeker. From here there is no turning back. The lesson here is that the journey of the Taibhsear is one of a lifetime commitment. There are 7 phases to being a shaman. The first phase is conquering one's own fears. Conquering fear doesn't mean never being afraid. It means rising to meet the challenges in spite of the fear. So the battlefield here, at Gairic and Ilgairic, is symbolic of Lugh's battle with the chaotic powers of fear within himself. It involves unwinding his own stories so he can create a new story. The next place Lugh visits is the ford of the Shannon. The story notes that this place is now called Altluin, which means the ford of the Loins. The river being crossed here is the Shannon, which is coincidentally the longest river in Ireland. The river was named after a woman named Shannon, the granddaughter of Lear. She went to Conla's well to find wisdom. The second stage of becoming a Taibhsear lies in emptying your cup. In order to be reborn as a Taibhsear, one must leave behind the former life. The river Lugh crosses is named after a seeker of wisdom, Shannon. The name Shannon means the ancient one of the river. It's the Celtic equivalent of calling the Mississippi River Old Man River, except the Irish version is an old woman. Also, the Shannon River is the longest river in Ireland, so in crossing it, Lugh is symbolically being initiated into a long and lonely journey of wisdom-seeking. The crossing is hereafter called the Ford of the Loins. This could be interpreted to mean Lugh is leaving behind the carnal pleasures of life. I don't think, however, that it refers to a life of celibacy. Instead, it's a question of priorities. In crossing at the Ford of the Loins, Lugh is making the spiritual quest the first and foremost thing in his life. Rather than making pleasures of the flesh his goal and ambition in life, he is seeking a higher calling. Just as Shannon, when she sought Conla's well of wisdom, sought a higher calling at the expense of her life. Wisdom was that important to her, and that important to Lugh. For modern Taibhsears, this can be a cautionary tale. We live in a consumer society. It's very easy to get caught up in the idea that material things are the key to happiness, and a certain amount of material goods are necessary to survive. But if that's our sole purpose in life, then life becomes empty and meaningless. As Lugh crosses the river into the realm of the shaman, it's not that he's leaving the material world behind. He's simply learning a new way of seeing and being in the world. That way of seeing shows him that there's more to life than the trinkets and the baubles of plunder and pleasure. The third landmark on Lugh's journey is the gap of separation called Berna Ertagana. The third phase of the path of the shaman is developing courage in the present moment. This isn't a false bravado. It's an act of being willing to share your heart with others. It means having the confidence of allowing yourself to be vulnerable without feeling you have to be wary of people taking advantage of you in that vulnerability. This is done by being present in the moment in which you find yourself, without thoughts of the past or worries about the future. This is accomplished on the path of the Taibhsear because once you learn to see things in a different way, you're set apart from others. The original meaning of the word sacred meant to be set apart. As Lugh crosses the gap of separation that is Berna Ertagana, his eyes and his heart have been opened to a wider world, and he can never go back to the way things were before. He's learned a new way of seeing and being in the world. The next stop on the sacred journey is Moilurig, or the plain of following. At this point on the journey of the Taibhsear, the transition involves caring for others by caring for yourself. Healers love to help people. It's what we do. Just remember when you're healing people to include yourself in the people being healed. Those of us who nurture and care for others sometimes think that it is selfish to take time to care for ourselves, when in fact, just the opposite is true. If we never take care for ourselves, we will eventually have nothing left to give others. So it's highly important to take time out once in a while to recharge our own batteries, lest we burn out, and then the people depending on us will have to do without us. As Lugh crosses the plane of following, the following on the path of the healer allows us to follow our own needs as well as the needs of others. It's also a reminder to know when to lead and when to follow. We don't have to do it all. We can sometimes delegate and let others take charge for a while, relaxing and following their lead. The next stop on the journey is Corshlev na Shesa, the round mountain of the poet's spring. In Newgrange, Ireland, there's a burial mound known as Brú na Bóinne. This site was built gradually over time, with some of the oldest sections being built around 5,000 or 6,000 years ago. It would have been an ancient site even in the time of the story of the Sons of Tuireann. It would have been there long before the Tuatha arrived, and would have probably been associated with the dark magic of the Fomorians. The monument dates back to at least 3200 BC, and consists of an inner chamber that is flooded with light only on the rising sun of the winter solstice, and for 4 days thereafter. Inside the mound is a large central chamber surrounded by 3 smaller chambers that may only be accessed by a single opening in the southeastern side of the structure. The chamber walls are decorated with various spirals and other artwork, but the most notable feature is the triskel, or the triple spiral, which is arranged in the chamber so as to only be illuminated once per year by the sun at the winter solstice. The monument predates Stonehenge by almost 1,000 years. The remains of 5 human bodies, some cremated, indicate that this may have been a ceremonial tomb of some sort. The fact that there are only 5 bodies in this giant complex probably means that it was not used primarily as any sort of sacred burial site. Therefore, the 5 bodies found inside must have some other reason for being there. One of the tasks of the shaman is to commune with the dead. Another is to journey to the other world and to bring back knowledge. Most, if not all, shamanic traditions have some sort of initiation rite in which the dedicant dies to his former life and is reborn to the life of the shaman. It is possible that these 5 bodies were there to facilitate the seeker's journey into the other world and back again. At any rate, all the elements common in a shamanic ritual are elements that are present at Brú na Bóinne. The remains of the 5 bodies placed within the chambers at Newgrange suggest that they are arranged in places of honor, if not of worship. The fact that there were only 5 may mean that there was some very special thing about these 5 bodies. Perhaps they were shamanic teachers or ancestors of a high magical and spiritual importance. It is possible that these corpses were placed within the mound so that the petitioners could seek wisdom from them on their journey to the land of the dead. The theme of death and rebirth is also present in the construction of Newgrange. The central chamber, buried and surrounded by 40 feet of earth, is only accessible through one narrow passage. This is clearly an archetypal womb of the Earth Mother. This theme of rebirth is reinforced by the fact that the chamber floor is only illuminated during the winter solstice, which is the date of the rebirth of the sun every year. Could Newgrange have been used for initiatory rites into a shamanistic priesthood? Corshlev na Shesa means the round mountain of the poet's spring. Brú na Bóinne is certainly a round mountain. It's a nearly perfect circle, 250 feet in diameter and 40 feet tall. Could Brú na Bóinne be the round mountain of the poet's spring? If so, then the poet's spring may not refer to an actual freshwater spring, but a spring of inspiration. Poets enter the chamber just before the winter solstice, and when the triskel on the wall is illuminated by the light of the rising sun, they are reborn with the divine spring of inspiration. The stage of shamanism associated with this landmark would be developing the skill of pattern finding. Such a skill means seeing connections in ways and patterns that others do not. It's a way of stepping back and seeing the bigger picture while still being able to focus on the details. Such an ability transcends time and space and the barriers of life and death. Making connections that others cannot see is the heart of the poet's art. So even though Brunabónna is not geographically on the path that Lugh would have taken to Uachtaráin, it is interesting to speculate on the connection. Brunabónna is mentioned later in the story when the Sons of Tuireann ask Lugh where they might find Manannan's coracle, and he tells them that it is at Brunabónna. So there is some connection with Brunabónna to the story already. But it may also be that there is another site now lost to us, that is the round mountain of the poet's spring. But for our purposes, Brunabónna fits in well with the journey of the Taibhsear. From it Lugh could have learned the arts of the bard in seeking the awen, through symbolic death and rebirth, in the womb of the goddess, represented by the round mountain of the poet's spring. After leaving Coirchleave na Séasa, Lugh's next stop is the head of Shanslave. The word slave means mountain, and the name Shan means gift of the gods. It's the Irish version of the name John. The next phase on the path of the shaman is the art of being seen. This doesn't mean putting on a show to satisfy the ego. Instead, being seen means allowing all of your gifts to come forth in public presence. It means not being ashamed to be who you are, warts and all. It also means not hiding your gifts out of fear of being criticized or condemned for walking the path. If you've seen the movie Avatar, you may be familiar with the phrase, "I see you." When one character says that to another in the movie, it doesn't mean that they just simply see the other person. It means that they see deep into their soul and understand them as a person. This is the type of being seen we're referring to in this phase on the path of the shaman. Unfortunately, in the Christian-dominated society in which we live, it can be a real danger to live openly as a pagan. Stories of discrimination at home and the workplace are all too common, and I've suffered some of that myself. At many pagan events, it's a common courtesy to ask before taking photos of anyone, because many people who have to live in the broom closet in order to avoid trouble in the workplace or trouble with family members have difficulty having photos taken. They're afraid that family members might not understand why they're on the path, or that they might have some repercussions at work. So, in some pagan rituals and some pagan gatherings, you may see people who are wearing red ribbons, meaning, "Please don't photograph me." Druids do tend to be more open about our rites, living in the public eye, unlike some other pagan paths. Many pagans hold rituals and rites in secret because of fear of persecution. But at this stage on our journey, living publicly as a pagan means trusting the gods to protect us as we venture out to share our gifts with others. Some people may never get to this stage. Some people may never arrive at Shanslave. There are still parts of the world where pagans might get fired, or be outcast from family, or be outcast from friends. There are even pagan parts of the world where it's perfectly legal to kill people suspected of not following the mainstream religion. But for those who have the courage and the ability, being seen is a way to foster understanding and tolerance of our path. Visiting the mountain of the gift of the gods, which is Shanslave, means honoring those gifts by being willing to share them openly, without shame or hesitation. After receiving the gifts and the blessings of the gods from Shanslave, Lugh ventures to the bright-faced Coran. The name Coran means mythical druid. The seventh and final phase of the journey on the road to being a Taibhsear is that of mentoring or teaching. This phase means gaining enough mastery over the arts of the druid to be able to teach others. Mentoring and teaching forces us to think about what we have learned in new ways. As a teacher, I've found that I have learned at least as much from my students as they have learned from me. And by teaching what I've learned, I've had to integrate the materials in new ways that have led me to make new connections with it all. As these new insights manifest, a great synergy occurs, in which the sum of the teachings is greater than all of their parts put together. There's an energy that occurs between teacher and student that is transformative. Both are transformed by the journey. The legends and the myths come alive in ways that were hidden before. By teaching, we see that the truth is held within the ancient stories, and that these stories come alive as we share them with others. The hidden meanings and patterns reveal themselves as we dialogue about them. Teaching and mentoring in this way allows us to always learn for ourselves as well, seeing new wisdom in the stories we may have heard 100 times before. It's the difference between having 20 years of experience and having 1 year of experience 20 times. It's the key to becoming a mythical druid. After his transformative experiences on the journey, Lugh finally arrives at Moimor Anaionai, the great plain of the fair, where the Fomorians were. The actual location of this plain is lost to history, but the story tells us that Brish and the Fomorians landed at Urshdara. The town of Biodiesel in Ireland is now on the site of Urshdara. Just east of the town is a vast plain bounded by granite hills to the north. This may have been the site. Since it's called the Great Plain of the Fair, it's not unreasonable to assume that it was a fertile plain suitable for grazing the cattle and the livestock the Fomorians plundered from the Tuatha. The story says that Lugh came to the plain and asked that the cattle be returned to his people, so we know that it's a place where livestock would thrive. To recap Lugh's sacred journey, he rides out to do battle with Bresh and the Fomorians at Urshdara, the waterfall of the Oaks. He's encountered many places and experiences on the journey, from Garrick and Ilgarek, the place of a shouting over many fords. Lugh learned commitment. There he forged his will to commit to the path. At Athluan, the ford of the Loins, Lugh crossed the Shannon, the river of ancient wisdom, signifying that he was leaving his old life behind to set out on the seeker's journey that is now the way of the Taibhsear. Next, at the gap of separation called Berna Etragana, Lugh learns how to be present in the moment and to walk the sacred journey. The next stop on Lugh's sacred journey is Moiluric, or the plain of following. Here Lugh learns to heal others by healing himself. After he is healed, Lugh is ready to seek the spring of inspiration at Corshlev na Shesa, the round mountain of the poet's spring. From there he drinks from the fountain of poetic inspiration before journeying to the head of Shanslave. At Shanslave, Lugh learns to accept the gifts of the gods with an open mind and an open heart, and to live the life he was born to live, unafraid and unashamed. After receiving the gifts and the blessings of the gods from Shanslave, Lugh ventures to the bright-faced Corin. And of course the name Corin means mythical druid. At this point, Lugh has integrated the teachings and is now ready to mentor others on the way of the Taibhsear. After passing through all these challenges, Lugh is also ready to do battle with the forces of chaos, represented by Bresh and the army of the Fomorians. On next week's podcast, we'll look at the battle and the outcome, and how Lugh reacted when he learned of his father's death at the hands of the Sons of Tuireann. The idea of a meditative ritual is simple yet powerful. It's to conduct a ritual while in a meditative state. Most Druid rituals and rites incorporate a time of silent or guided meditation before the main rite takes place. If you are leading a rite for one of the high days or for another occasion, you may use this time to prepare yourself for the ceremonies to come by placing yourself into a meditative state. If you are not leading the rite, but are still participating in it, you may use this meditation time in a similar fashion to contemplate the symbols and the meanings of the ceremony. Use this meditative ritual meditation at the beginning of a rite and continue to meditate for the duration of the ritual. Begin by grounding and centering. Take a few deep breaths, drawing the earth's energy into your center. Inhale. Hold your breath. Release and exhale. Again, inhale. Hold. And now exhale. One more time, inhale. Hold. And exhale. Now ground by picturing the telluric energies of the earth rising up to meet the solar energies from the sky. As these energies intertwine and unite, they ground the sacred space where your rite will be taking place. Picture a maypole. The telluric energies of the earth are contained within the pole, and the sun's energies are the ribbons, weaving around the pole and creating a sacred center of perfect balance between chaos and order. When these two energies meet, the creation of all things is possible. Another way to picture grounding and centering is that the telluric energies of the earth represent the dark emotional powers of your own unconscious mind, while the solar energies represent the powers of rational, conscious thought. Where the two are in balance, wisdom is achieved. When you have achieved balance between the forces of chaos and order, you are ready to begin your meditative rite. As you participate in the rite, focus on your breathing and move smoothly from one phase of the ritual to the next. As you move through the steps of your ritual, direct your attention to each detail of each step. Don't move on in your mind to the next part of the rite until the part before you is complete. Focus on one thing at a time. Allow your mind, body, spirit, and emotion to absorb the meaning from each portion of the rite. Think of your rite as a Japanese tea ceremony, where the grace of a ballet dancer or a swordsman is applied to the task of making a cup of tea. See yourself as a dancer and allow your body to move gracefully from one motion to the other, while your mind remains at peace and focused only on each task at hand. Allow yourself to move gracefully from one step of the ritual to another, focusing only on the task that is before you in any given moment. Allow your spirit to reflect the lesson being taught and learned in the rite. Allow your body to move gracefully from one motion to the next without thought in the present moment. Allow your mind to be floating and open. Don't think about anything but the ritual before you. Allow yourself to experience it fully in the present. Notice any emotions that rise up. What feelings does this rite stir in you? See the entire rite as a moving, physical, meditative exercise, like Tai Chi. As you draw the meditative ritual to a close, take a few deep breaths and return to yourself. Inhale. Hold. And now exhale. Inhale. Hold. And exhale. One final breath. Inhale. Hold. And now exhale. You may now wish to offer a short silent thanks to your god or goddess as you end the rite. The Herbal Apothecary discusses healing properties of herbs and other plants. Herbal medicine requires caution and practice. None of the medicinal uses described in the Herbal Apothecary should be attempted by a novice. Some parts of the plants used in herbal medicines are poisonous, and people with allergies should also be aware of potential allergic reactions to herbs and other plants. If you're interested in herbal medicine, find a skilled practitioner and take lessons. Do not attempt to use medicinal plants without the supervision of an expert. The Herbal Apothecary. Safety Tips. On this week's Herbal Apothecary, we're going to talk about some safety tips when practicing herbal medicine. When in doubt with any of the ingredients or techniques used in herbal medicines, always ask an expert first. When necessary, seek medical advice. Essential oils. Most practitioners of holistic healing arts have used essential oils at one time or another. While they are great for aromatherapy, they also have other practical uses. Essential oils may be used to attract pollinating insects, to facilitate allelopathy, to ward off harmful insects and other animals, and to protect plants by their antifungal and antibacterial properties. They are the concentrated essences of a plant. Because of this, they are potent liquids and should be handled with care. As with all herbal medicines, essential oils should be kept out of the reach of children. You should also avoid taking them internally or putting them in your ears or into contact with mucous membranes or open wounds. Never apply essential oils to babies unless cleared to do so by a doctor. Never use essential oils on your body without diluting them first, as many can cause rashes and even burns. Always wash your hands after working with essential oils, and avoid touching your eyes or your nose if you have any on your fingers. When working with essential oils, make sure the room is well ventilated. Even though you might like the pleasant smell, it may be overwhelming after working in an enclosed room for a while. And because of the pleasant aroma, you may not notice its effects until it's too late. Early signs of overexposure include headaches and nausea. If you're feeling any of those or feeling sick in any way, open the window or leave the room. If you spill essential oils while working, you may neutralize their potency by cleaning them up using mayonnaise, whole milk, not 2% or low fat, but whole milk, vegetable oil, or any other product that contains fat. The proteins in animal fat neutralize most essential oils. After they've been neutralized, you may clean them up with soap and water. Many types of essential oils act as solvents, so use glass containers rather than metal or plastic. Many essential oils will dissolve plastic, and if you place them in metal containers, a chemical reaction could occur. If you spill any on the furniture, wipe it off immediately so that it doesn't mar the surface. Essential oils are flammable, so keep them away from open flames. If you're using a diffuser, use only as directed, and under no circumstances let your essential oils come into contact with the flame. While working with plant materials, there's always the danger that someone may be allergic. What may only cause a mild reaction to some could be a life-threatening allergy to others. If you have any allergies at all, when working with new plant materials, it's a good idea to do a skin patch test before using any medicines made with herbs. To do this, you would mix a pinch of the herb or plant material with about half a teaspoon of olive oil or coconut oil. Apply this mixture to a Band-Aid and let it soak in. Then put the bandage on the soft, fleshy part of your inner forearm. Leave it in place for at least 48 hours. If you have any irritation whatsoever under or around the Band-Aid, don't use that particular herb on yourself. Also be aware that a patch test isn't a 100% guarantee that you won't have any allergic reaction if you apply the herb topically, but it's a good benchmark test. If taking herbs or infusions or decoctions made with them internally, try a very small dose first, no more than half a teaspoon. Wait 48 hours. If you don't have any allergic reaction, it's probably safe to use the medicine. If you're planning to use your own herbal medicines, you should first talk to your doctor about any potential side effects or dangerous interactions between herbal remedies and any prescription medications that you might be taking. Just as an example, ginkgo biloba is a natural blood thinner that shouldn't be taken with any anticoagulant drugs. Valerian root, a natural sedative, also should not be taken with any prescription sleep aids. You also want to avoid mixing herbal medicines that may have effects and results that are opposite to each other. For example, you wouldn't want to take St. John's wort, which is a natural antidepressant, with kava, which has sedative properties. If you're about to have surgery for any reason, or are about to get a new prescription drug, consult with your doctor before taking any herbal medicines. Herbs like garlic, ginger, and ginseng can affect the heart rate and the blood pressure, causing surgery complications or negative interactions with prescription drugs. It's advisable to stop taking any herbal supplements at least 2 weeks before surgery. Women who are pregnant and nursing mothers should always check with a medical professional before beginning any herbal supplement. Note also that children have different metabolisms than adults, and simply reducing the size of an adult dose for a child might not be enough of a precaution. When in doubt about this or any other herbal medicine consideration, always consult with your doctor or other medical professional first. The Green Corner, Sustainable Transportation, Hybrids. Hybrid vehicles are cars and trucks that primarily run on electricity, but have the option of running on gasoline or other fuels when the batteries are low. They have the benefit of extended range and of not having to find an electric vehicle charging station when out traveling. These vehicles were fairly expensive when they first arrived on the market, but as gas prices and environmental concerns continue to rise, hybrid prices are on the decline. Automobile manufacturers are responding to consumer interest by offering more and more hybrid models. There are even hybrid SUVs that reportedly get around 60 to 80 miles per gallon. Hybrids are good for anyone accustomed to gasoline or diesel-powered vehicles. They have about the same amount of passenger room, and their performance is similar to more traditional counterparts. The difference is that they use much less fuel. Some hybrids, under certain conditions, can get as much as 100 miles per gallon on the highway. Hybrids are an excellent choice for consumers who are concerned about the environment but who don't want to give up luxury and convenience. Hybrids work by using a combination of electric motor and gasoline or diesel engine. The basics of this are that the electric motor works to move the vehicle and is assisted by the gasoline or diesel engine when more power is needed or when the charge in the batteries is low. The major problem with hybrids is that they still rely on fossil fuels. They do use less fossil fuel and have higher emission standards, but they're not truly sustainable. Manufacturers seem to be catching on, though, as a few are offering limited edition hybrids that can run on E85 ethanol, which is much better than either a vehicle powered totally by fossil fuels or a hybrid vehicle powered only by gasoline, but is still not totally sustainable. because E85 ethanol has 15% gasoline. The holy grail of hybrids is a biodiesel hybrid. Such a hybrid would combine the durability and power of a diesel engine with the fuel economy of a hybrid car. There's even talk of a plug-in biodiesel hybrid that could be charged at EV charging stations where they're available, and then run on diesel or biodiesel in areas where there are no charging stations. Using flexible fuel vehicles at current consumption rates, the United States would need a farm the size of roughly Texas, Arizona, Oklahoma, and Louisiana combined, dedicated solely to the production of crops for biofuels to meet fuel demands. But if we converted to biodiesel plug-in hybrids instead, we could meet our current fuel needs with only 1/4 of that acreage. Another advantage of biodiesel hybrids is that they would run on either biodiesel or regular diesel fuel. This means that if you're traveling and can't find a station that sells biodiesel, you're not stranded. You can always use regular diesel, while informing the station owner that he should be carrying biodiesel as well, of course. If you're the hands-on do-it-yourself type, you can even make your own biodiesel. This is usually done by salvaging cooking grease from local fast food restaurants and then purifying it and refining it in your own home. There are plenty of sites online that will teach you how to make your own biodiesel if you're interested. Of all the choices available for green transportation, plug-in biodiesel hybrids would be my top pick. If they're truly offered commercially in the near future, you can be assured that I'll purchase one for myself and I'll be fueling it with my own homemade biodiesel. You've been listening to The Way of the Taibhsear on International Pagan Radio, where it's all pagan all the time. This has been episode 33, Interpreting the Sons of Tuireann, Part 2. The Way of the Taibhsear is the official podcast of the Order of the Taibhsear. You can learn more about us at taibhsear.com. That's TAIBHSEAR.com. The Way of the Taibhsear is a podcast about Druidry and paganism as practiced by the Order of the Taibhsear. Paganism is a wide and diverse community, and we don't claim to speak for all pagans. You can get in touch with us on Facebook. Look for The Way of the Taibhsear podcast. The Way of the Taibhsear is sponsored by Elder Grove Seminary, offering the best in pagan education, with online bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees in ministry and divinity. Learn more about Elder Grove Seminary at eldergrove.org. Until next time, blessings of the ancestors.